Yeah.
Dr. Aron, appreciate you hopping on today. Really excited for this one. The enhanced games. It's the buzzword going all around now. You guys have done an amazing job with the PR. But give us the rundown. What is the enhanced games? Where did the idea come from? And where are you at currently today?
We're building the modern version of the Olympic Games that importantly pays all athletes and does not have drug testing. So where did the idea come from? Well, 20 years ago, when I was an undergraduate at Oxford University, I was reading papers by prominent bioethicists like Professor Julian Savulescu, who are arguing for an enhanced Olympics. And over the years, I read statistics like that 44% of elite track and field athletes use banned performance-enhancing drugs, yet only 1% get caught. And then what really struck me was when I learned that the average Olympian only earns about $30,000 a year. Even earning a gold medal is not a lifetime golden ticket. And so I thought to myself, when the Olympic officials are on a corruption gravy train, flying around the world in private jets and literally living in palaces, being paid millions of dollars a year, they're overseeing a system of exploitation, and someone should create something better. So I'm so pleased that we've received such a response to the enhanced games. And today we announced that Peter Thiel, the co-founder of PayPal, billionaire investor Christian Ingermeyer, former Coinbase CTO Balaji Srinivasan have all joined into a funding round that gives us enough equity capital to produce the first enhanced games.
Yeah, it's awesome to see just innovation in sports across. We've seen there was a broken model in golf. The Saudis and Live Golf formed. It seems like now, and if you can go just a little bit deeper, I know you talked about the payment side, into the broken model in Olympics, and then how you're now trying to be that solution that fixes it and makes it better at the end of the day for athletes first, but then hopefully as well for all the fans and everyone else involved.
Absolutely. So the core problem about the Olympic Games is that it moves around every 4 years. And so the 4-year format is actually not very good for athletes because they don't get an opportunity to grow and monetize their brand. If you only have 15 minutes of fame every 4 years, you don't really have fame. And so the second problem with the Olympics is that they build a dozen stadiums and then they throw them away after 2 weeks. They waste tens, if not $100 billion in building useless infrastructure for sports that no one watches. And so at the enhanced games, we're going to focus on the sports that matter: track and field, swimming and diving, gymnastics, combat sports, and weightlifting. 5 sports that don't require any specialist infrastructure. And so we're not going to waste billions of dollars. And instead, we will put all of our profits back into growing our games and paying the athletes. And a lot of people think that we'll break all the world records, which I think we will, because of performance-enhancing drugs. That will be a contributing factor. But the financial stability we can offer athletes will actually make the biggest difference in terms of breaking world records.
And when I'm just looking at some stats here while you're talking as well. The IOC, the International Olympic Committee that run it, $7 billion in revenue last cycle, over 700 employees. Obviously starting from scratch, and we've mentioned you have some good backers behind you now as well. But what does it take to get this league off the ground to compete with something that has a lot of resources and a lot of people? How do you foresee that playing, and how are you trying to tackle it at the moment and into the foreseeable future?
Well, actually, if you look at the history of disruption, having a lot of people and a lot of resources is actually a huge disadvantage because the ship moves slowly. It's a massive, corrupt bureaucracy. And, being a nimble, agile startup is actually very much an advantage. So we see the potential of the enhanced games as being a fully produced world-class event that pays all athletes and has very large prize money for low double-digit $1 million, not billions and billions of massive waste, because we're redesigning the games for a modern era, not for an era of colonialism and an empire like in 1896 when Pierre de Coubertin reinvented the ancient Olympics, but for an era of social media, an era of streaming, and an era of science.
And when you look at the current payments, because you've mentioned that for the athletes, how does that work at the moment? How are these athletes paid? And why
they're not.
Obviously,
right?
We know why it's broken, but yeah.
Yeah, so your typical Olympian isn't paid. They might get a bonus payment if they win a gold medal, depending on which country that they're from. If you're from a smaller country,
so they're relying entirely on endorsements.
Yeah, and endorsements don't really work that well. Okay, yes, if you're winning the men's 100 meter, you'll get a multi-million-dollar Nike or Adidas contract. But if you are gold medalists in javelin, your sponsors are probably your local hardware store in Wichita, Kansas, and your community is supporting you. And when you have this huge disconnect between highly paid officials and very lowly paid athletes, it's a recipe for revolution. Inequality is always a recipe for revolution. So when we compare ourselves against something like Live Golf or FIFA, it's not even the same, because those are very moneyed sports where disruptors have tried to come in and have had to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to buy players over. In the Olympic construct, you have the crown jewel of international sport, but the athletes are earning absolutely nothing.
And what's the current pitch when you're going to athletes and their trainers? What are you saying to them to now want them to compete in the games? Because I think as a fan or anyone outside, we get it. Like, yo, this would be awesome. Like, can we really see what it takes to become the fastest in the world? But to the athletes, and I'm assuming a lot of their trainers, because they have, for people that don't know, athletes have a lot of people around them, not just on finances, but in training and nutrition, everything. What's that pitch look like, and how are you making sure you're getting athletes into the funnel as well? Because you are building across multiple different fronts, and it is somewhat of a marketplace of you need to attract the media rights holders, the fans, the athletes, etc.
UPS, and this is in sport, and you can do that with science. And if you break the world record, you're going to earn millions, and you'll be the most famous person in the world. And when we break the 100-meter world record, I think it will be a moment like when the supercomputer Deep Blue beat Garry Kasparov, or even man landing on the moon. Imagine the first moment where science is unlocked. Science ceases to be oppressed in sport, and we can see what humanity is truly capable of. It's going to be one of the best television moments of all time. And we have been inbounded by virtually every television network in the world who are interested in broadcasting the games, and we're in negotiations with them, because ultimately this makes for really, really compelling television.
Very compelling. Yeah, I know Joe Rogan's talked about the enhanced games. I've seen it a few other places. Of course, who wouldn't want to watch this? But my question for you is there a line in the sand somewhere where the Olympics, they've drawn their line at, you can't take any performance enhancing to this degree? Is there a line for you guys on anything? Like, what if it becomes almost robots competing? Like, is there any sort of line, or none at all, at least at the moment?
The line is safety. So we want to be the safest sporting event in history. And so let's be very clear. Drug testing is not about safety. It's about fairness. Lance Armstrong can't use the super steroids when other athletes don't have access to them. And the whole drug testing apparatus is about fairness in competition. And so we're designing a whole safety apparatus involving pre-competition clinical screenings so that athletes we know are safe to compete. And that would involve blood work, EKGs, possibly even MRIs, do full-scale, high-quality imaging under a top-quality clinical supervision. And you'll note, if you look at our website, enhance.org, you will see our world-class scientific advisory board, including people like Professor George Church, the chairman of genetics at Harvard, Dr. Michael Sagner from King's College London, and many other eminent scientists and clinicians who are supporting this project.
So where is the human line? Like, you have to be purely human, or like, just because a lot of people talk about this, Elon Musk said there'll be by 2040 something like 1 billion humanoids or robots or something to that degree running around. Where is there a line even of robots versus humans competing, or like, where is your biological? I mean, I know now we're getting into ethics and a lot of different things, but like, where do you sort of position this around like humans competing versus now like cyborgs, or what, see some of the comments on under your social media handles.
And so the way I compare this is like the Olympics are like an opera. It's about the past. It's about history. It's about natural sports. And we're like a rock concert. And rock concerts always reinvent themselves year after year, tour after tour. And so with each new enhanced games, we want to embrace the latest science and the latest technology. Because if you look at Elon Musk, who notably co-founded PayPal with our lead investor, Peter Thiel, he just announced that Neuralink has had the first human implantation. And so imagine basketball. I know your sport, Andrew. if every athlete had a Neuralink implant and real-time AI decision support? What would that do to show the possibility of humanity and science to the world, and then in turn diffuse that technology out into the wider population? I look at Apple's Vision Pro goggles. What if a javelin thrower could wear that to improve their performance? We want to show what humanity is capable of in collaboration and with the support of science and engineering.
Yeah, it's super cool. I mean, I even always say if I had you have the Apple earbuds in, if I had those while I was playing basketball, I would even be a better player, just because when you're training, you got the music, but then when you're in games, you don't. So it's funny how even there might even be the slightest things. Like, would you allow something like that, or are you purely just on the scientific side, or what parameters, outside of the genetics are you looking at to make sure?
A fair and level playing field. So right now we're very much focused on pharmacological enhancements, but I think about in swimming, even just having underwater headphones where your coach can talk to you as you're swimming would be a huge advantage. Because if any of you have ever done competitive swimming, you know you can't hear anything while you're in the pool and you are in an information deficit. And so enhancements like that are part of everyday life, and technology and science have been oppressed in sports. And so we fundamentally think of ourselves not just as a sporting event, but as a civil rights movement. We're here to unlock the potential of humanity. We believe in the acceleration of humanity, and sporting bodies like the International Olympic Committee have literally oppressed science and sport for 50 years.
And I guess in terms of records, and I know you mentioned the 5 pillar sports, but what are some of the first ones you see being broken just based off your science or what you've heard from some of your internal people of things that can be improved pretty quickly?
Oh, well, I love talking to my scientific advisory board because they believe that all the world records can be obliterated in the first games. I'm cautiously optimistic, but I do think that the 100-meter is one of the records that was really near and dear to our heart, the world's fastest man. Because will NBC pay $8 billion for the Olympic television rights to broadcast the fastest natural man in the world? I don't think so. And if you're an athlete, you don't want to be the fastest natural man in the world. You just want to be the fastest man in the world. And so when we have all of the world records, it fundamentally changes the market dynamics vis-a-vis broadcasting rights and also with athletes.
And in terms of, the first events, locations, where are you at with all of that stuff of when the first enhanced games will be hosted, where it will be hosted? What does some of that look like as, you're now coming out with, a lot of these big announcements, people are getting excited about it.
Yeah. So one great thing about having the full equity capital from Peter Thiel and Christian and our other investors, it means that we don't need to sell long-term television rights or sell equity in our business to venues in exchange for them to host us. And so with having this new fundraising round allows us to just pay cash to external suppliers and to athletes and have a very simplified capital structure. So in a long-winded way, that means that we are in a very strong negotiating position now vis-a-vis broadcasters and venues as we start to close those contracts. So we will be making those announcements over the coming weeks. I can say that on the 17th of April, there will be a huge announcement about the Enhanced Games and our activation at the Paris Olympics and how we plan to support athletes who are enhanced at the Games to be open and honest about that.
Love that. And I guess as we're sort of rolling towards the end of this, I like to keep these around 20 minutes, but what was the enticing factors to someone like Peter Thiel that made him want to get behind the Enhanced Games and some of your other investors? What was it for them? Because guys like this, they have all the money and projects and things. Obviously something is near and dear to them as well to want to get behind something like this. So curious, what their driving force behind it was.
Every billionaire of a certain age, self-made billionaire that I've met, eventually comes to the conclusion that they want to live forever. They believe death is the ultimate challenge that technology should be able to solve. And aging is a disease that we should be able to treat, cure, and eventually solve. And the scientific and medical apparatus is not very well equipped for that. Work on anti-aging and eventually life extension technology. And I know this sounds like science fiction, but remember, AI was science fiction just 5 years ago, and now it's real. Now it's here, and it's a multi-trillion-dollar industry with global impact. And I think the inflection point for AI was ChatGPT, and the inflection point for anti-aging and performance medicine technology will be the first enhanced games.
Love it. Yeah, Doctor, appreciate you coming on today and giving us the rundown. Where can we find more? What's the website, socials? Where can people just stay up to date on things?
You can go to enhance.org or go to Enhance Games on Twitter. We're very active. And feel free to DM us. We always are looking for collaborators and friends and athletes, and we're very responsive.
Love that. Well, yep, appreciate you coming on. And man, it's cool. I agree with you. I'm really curious to see who is the true fastest person on Earth, and where can science take us. I guess we'll find out. And then I'm really curious, as the lines start to get blurred over the years between the technology and genetics, what that starts to look like. But it'll be super interesting, and hope you guys are a part of that upswing.
And thank you very much for your words of confidence. And Andrew, thank you for having me on your show.